The man didn't expect it, not in that moment, not in that place. But as his hands dug through the dry, dusty earth, they struck something rare, a world-class pink diamond, a stone so breathtaking in size and color, it could shake the world. And yet, he was just a slave, Solomon, shackled by circumstance. He knew deep down that keeping the diamond could mean everything, or cost him his life. Just days before, another worker, someone who'd merely hidden a diamond, the size of a grain of rice in his mouth, was caught and shot dead. On the spot. So where could Solomon possibly hide something this big? His heart began to race. Adrenaline surged. Then boom, a deafening explosion shattered the moment. The nearby water pump had burst, drawing every eye, every gun, every breath toward the chaos. Without thinking, Solomon moved. He crouched low, fingers trembling, and slid the diamond between his toes. Then cool and quick, he asked to use the restroom and slipped away, but not unseen. The rebel commander had been watching, sensing something off. He stepped into Solomon's path, suspicion in his eyes. The tension hung heavy. The air felt thick. Yet after a full search every pocket, every fold of cloth, they found nothing. The diamond, still pressed beneath Solomon's foot, remained hidden. He made it to a quiet spot, thinking it was finally over, until he felt the cold steel of a gun pressing against the back of his head. The commander hadn't been fooled after all. He'd followed silently, waiting. Solomon froze. The moment stretched thin. He was about to surrender the diamond when fate intervened. Another explosion, this one much closer. The government forces had arrived in a surprise attack. A bomb landed just beside them. The commander was blown back, severely injured, and Solomon ran. He didn't stop until he reached a dry, twisted tree. There, with shaking hands, he buried the diamond deep into the earth. Relief washed over him, but only for a second. He was captured by government troops almost immediately after, and as he was dragged to the prison, bruised but breathing, he came face to face with the last man he wanted to see, the rebel commander. He wasn't dead, blinded in one eye, yes, but very much alive. And worse, he remembered. With a roar that echoed through the prison, he shouted, "This punk has a priceless pink diamond. Whoever finds it gets a big reward from me." Dozens of eyes turned towards Solomon, hungry, desperate, dangerous. To protect himself, Solomon did the only thing he could. He denied everything, loudly, desperately, even tore off every piece of clothing to prove he had nothing. Naked, exposed, but still holding a secret buried beneath a tree. And maybe, just maybe, a chance at freedom. Although this method might have fooled the small fry, it couldn't slip past Danny. Danny was a white man, born and raised in Africa, an unrepentant smuggler, entrenched in the black market diamond trade. Wherever diamonds glittered in the dirt, Danny wasn't far behind. But this life came at a cost. It was dangerous work. One wrong move, and you'd vanish without a trace. Still, Danny had carved out a reputation. His years on the job had made him sharp, enough to sniff out a setup and slick enough to unload stolen gems like a ghost in the wind. That day, Danny had done it again. He'd secured another batch of diamonds, clean and quick. His plan to ferry them across the border into a neighboring country was as clever as it was bold. He posed as a traveling magazine reporter and hired a few local shepherds for cover. The real trick: the diamonds were stitched beneath the skin of one of the sheep. But fate has a strange way of humbling even the seasoned. And Danny, who had never failed, was about to stumble. Right before his eyes, the perfect plan began to unravel. The noose tightened. He was moments from being caught red-handed. With no options left, Danny made a desperate call to his boss, Kutsi. Kutsi wasn't just anyone. He was the head of the largest mercenary army in Africa. His name alone could silence a room. But not this time. The opposition didn't flinch. They tossed Danny into prison like he was nothing. Ironically, that cell became his fortune. Behind bars, Danny caught wind of something extraordinary. A man named Solomon had gotten his hands on a rare pink diamond, a world-class gem. Soon after, an accomplice bailed him out. Wasting no time, Danny passed on the intel and made his order clear: get Solomon out, no matter the cost. Because Danny knew the truth. That diamond wasn't just a rock, it was a ticket. With it, he could buy freedom, break loose from Kutsi's iron grip, and vanish from Africa forever. After giving the order, Danny returned to his hotel room. He closed the door behind him. The air was still. Then, without hesitation, he drew a dagger and pried out one of his own teeth. Something was hidden there, something the world would never suspect. Hidden inside was a diamond, a rare gem, a secret he swore he would only reveal as a last resort. It was his final card. While Danny stepped out to exchange money, A man quietly slipped into his room. At the same time, in another part of the city, his accomplices had managed to bail Solomon out of prison. They handed him a small sum of cash, just enough to keep him from ending up back in jail for being penniless. Solomon, disoriented and lost in thought, didn't dwell on the gesture. His mind was consumed by one goal: finding his family. Not long ago, Solomon had been just a humble fisherman, raising 3 children with the woman he loved. Their life was simple, yes, but far from peaceful. His son, Jel, was especially remarkable, obedient, bright, and eager to learn. Each day, the boy would rise early and walk 5 long kilometers through rugged mountain paths just to attend school. But that one fateful afternoon, as Solomon went to pick Jel up from school, their lives were ripped apart. A rebel group descended from the hills like a storm, armed, ruthless, and inhuman. They flooded the village, guns blazing, shooting indiscriminately at innocent civilians, even children. When they killed, their eyes held no emotion, no remorse, no mercy. In the panic, Solomon managed to help his wife and children escape. But he wasn't so lucky. He was caught. At first, they were going to sever his arm. That was the punishment. But when they noticed his sturdy frame, they reconsidered. Too strong to waste, they muttered. Instead, they bound him and sent him after the diamond mines, to labor, to suffer. And that was where the story had begun. Back in the present, Danny had just finished his transaction and walked into a nearby bar, not to drink, not to celebrate, but to find the owner and order a pistol. But fate had a different plan. That's when he saw her, Matty. She was stunning. At first, Danny only had one thing in mind: a night with a beautiful woman. But the moment they spoke, he realized she wasn't just another girl at the bar, she was a reporter. And within minutes, she had already guessed who he was: a diamond smuggler. Danny despised the media. He didn't trust them. He didn't talk to them. But Matty was relentless. She demanded answers. She wanted him to expose the blood diamond trade and, more importantly, the kingpin behind it all. But no matter how alluring she was, Danny wasn't about to give up his secrets to a stranger with a notepad. Later that night, when he returned to his hotel, his heart sank. The room had been turned upside down, ransacked. In an instant, Danny knew what had happened. One of his own had betrayed him, leaked information about the pink diamond to Colonel Cutsy. He should have expected it. In this brutal land where betrayal was currency, trust was the cheapest thing you could offer. Still, the sting of it made his blood boil. Words exchanged like old friends, but underneath, each held their own unspoken thoughts, silent calculations running behind every glance. Danny had already made up his mind. He was going to confront the Colonel. Enough of the games. Before leaving, though, he let loose his frustration, delivering a brutal punch to the man's face, a fist full of betrayal and rage. It wasn't long before Danny was summoned to the Colonel's estate for tea. But it was no social call. The Colonel, Africa's most powerful mercenary leader, wasn't a man who shared pleasantries without purpose. He profited from both sides of the war, trading diamonds while aiding governments in crushing rebellion. War for him was a business, and business had made him rich beyond measure. So when word of a rare pink diamond reached him, he didn't hesitate. He gave Danny a direct order: retrieve the diamond no matter what it took. In return, all of Danny's old debts would vanish. But the Colonel wasn't blind. He knew Danny's deepest desire: to escape Africa, to leave behind this blood-soaked soil. With a cold smirk, he scooped a handful of red earth from the ground, let it slip between his fingers, and said quietly, "This is your home. You will never leave Africa." Danny had known this man since he was a boy. He'd witnessed his ruthlessness, understood his threats. So, swallowing his pride, he buried the fire in his eyes and shifted his focus back to Solomon. But Solomon was no fool. Distrust carved into his face like the lines of a map. He denied everything, claimed he had never laid eyes on a pink diamond. No matter how Danny pressed, the man wouldn't budge. With options running thin, Danny resorted to buying time. That evening, he returned to the bar. The owner, a quiet man with sharp instincts, finally handed him the pistol he'd ordered days ago. Then, in a low voice, he shared something else, something far more valuable than a weapon. "The rebels, they're coming tomorrow. If you want to live, leave before dawn." Just as Danny absorbed the news, his eyes landed on her, Matty. Again, unexpectedly. After their last explosive fallout, the tension between them now melted into something strange, familiar, intimate. They clung to each other like lovers reunited. But the truth was more complicated. Danny wanted flesh. Matty wanted information. Even in their closeness, neither truly reached for the other. The mask stayed on, until Matty snapped. She tore through the silence with venom in her voice, calling him out. I've met too many men like you, men who trade lives for money, who never lose sleep over it. Danny turned away, disinterested, but she wasn't done. She followed him to the bar, refusing to let go. This time, Danny didn't hold back. His voice sharpened as he fired back at Matty. You think you're so noble, that you can change Africa? Let me tell you something, you're part of this too. You think these diamonds would be worth anything if it weren't for American girls like you, dreaming of fairy tale weddings and sparkling stones. You made them valuable. You made them worth smuggling. But Matty didn't flinch. Her voice, calm but cutting, replied, not every American girl dreams of a fairy tale wedding, just like not every African lives by the gun, slaughtering each other. There are people out here every single day doing good, but clearly, none of them are you. The very next day, the rebels did exactly what the Whispers had warned. They stormed the city. War had returned, and the streets were about to drown in blood and fire. Danny didn't waste time. He went looking for Solomon. The diamond was now a curse, dangerous and unsellable. Holding onto it meant death. Still, Solomon wouldn't listen. His heart was fixed on one thing, his family. Danny saw the desperation in his eyes and didn't hesitate. Seeing the desperation in Solomon's eyes, Danny didn't waste a second. His voice was sharp, urgent. Without me, he said, you have even less chance of changing your fate, of finding your wife and children. But Solomon wouldn't listen. The pain inside him had hardened into mistrust. The argument grew, heated voices clashing against the backdrop of a city on the brink. And then, the sky split open. The rebels launched their assault. Explosions shook the streets. Gunfire rattled through the air. The city descended into chaos. Amid the panic, Danny grabbed Solomon's arm, shouting over the noise, we have to go now. They ran through the smoke and screams, weaving through shattered buildings and crumbling walls. Even then, Danny kept pressing him, his words cutting through the fear. You want to find your family? Then help me. Shaking, heart pounding, Solomon finally gave in. He nodded, barely audible above the gunfire. He would cooperate. The government forces had already clashed with the rebels, but neither side gave a damn about the people caught in the middle. Civilians dropped like FLI's, bodies and blood littering the streets. But Danny was no stranger to war. He danced with death too many times to count. With steady hands and quick thinking, he led Solomon through the storm, dodging bullets, ducking beneath shattered rooftops, guiding him to a half-destroyed ruin where, for a moment, there was silence. When night fell, they moved again, cloaked in shadows. They made their way toward the only exit out of the city. But their path was blocked. 3 rebel soldiers stood guard, rifles slung over their shoulders, eyes scanning the darkness. Escape meant risk, and risk meant acting fast. Put on their collars, Danny whispered. Pretend you're one of them. I'll be your prisoner. Solomon hesitated, but Danny was already adjusting his stance, slipping into the role. They approached slowly, carefully. The rebels barely looked up. They were bored, tired of guard. Then, like a switch had flipped, Danny struck. In one smooth motion, he drew his pistol and dropped all 3. No hesitation, no mercy. One rebel tried to flee. Danny picked up a sniper rifle, aimed and pulled the trigger. The man crumpled in the distance. Solomon stood frozen, breath shallow, eyes wide. For the first time, he saw just how deadly this man really was. Danny wasn't just clever, he was ruthless. Later, they joined a wave of frightened civilians pouring into a government-run refugee camp. The mood was heavy. Survivors, broken families, lost souls. There, in the thick of the crowd, Danny spotted a familiar face, a male reporter. And through him, he found her, Matty. They locked eyes. No words wasted. I can give you information, Danny said flatly. But in return, you need to use your credentials to access the database. Help Solomon find his family. Danny knew one thing. If he wanted the pink diamond, he first had to handle Solomon. And the only way to do that was to help him find his family. Matty wasn't blind. She knew Danny was using her. She also knew Solomon must be connected to the diamond, because a man like Danny, who chased nothing but profit, wouldn't help a black fisherman out of generosity. But as a reporter, Matty had always chosen to fight for what was right. If helping Solomon meant saving lives, then she didn't care about Danny's motives. Soon, she located Solomon's family. They were in a refugee camp across the border in Guinea. A helicopter was arranged. But when they arrived, the truth hit hard. Over 1 million displaced people filled the camp. Finding anyone here was like looking for a drop of hope in a sea of despair. And yet, fate showed mercy. Solomon spotted them, his wife and daughter, huddled together. But his son, Di, was missing, taken by the rebels. It crushed Solomon. He knew exactly what happened to boys recruited into rebel armies. He had seen them turned into machines, stripped of innocence, trained to kill. And he was right. DI had become the rebels' pride, remorseless, emotionless, always charging ahead in battle. A boy no longer. Worse still, the government had its own cold strategy. Fearing rebel infiltration, they announced no refugees would be allowed to return home until the war ended. So even reunited with his wife and daughter, Solomon remained empty-handed, his soul numbed. Each day, he wandered the camp, whispering his son's name like a prayer too faint for heaven to hear. Danny. He still only cared about the diamond. Once he learned where Solomon had buried it, he focused all his energy on retrieving it. But the mine's location was now a war zone, claimed by multiple factions. His best chance? Infiltrate Matty's team. But Matty was disillusioned. Brilliant, Ivy League educated. She could have lived comfortably in New York. Instead, she chased justice in Africa, driven by a messiah complex she couldn't shake. She wrote, photographed, published, yet no matter how heartfelt her stories were, they changed nothing. A few tears from readers. That was all. She didn't want sympathy anymore. She wanted truth, evidence, something undeniable to take down. The diamond trade's darkest puppeteers, perhaps moved by her resolve or simply desperate, Danny opened up. He laid bare the entire blood diamond network. The gems were smuggled into neighboring countries, handed to local buyers, then passed to middlemen who bribed customs to relabel them as legally mined. From there, they entered the global market clean on paper, bloody in truth. And at the top of it all was Van de Kapp, a man who controlled both supply and war. He hoarded diamonds to maintain high prices, and fueled the conflict to ensure rebel diamonds never reached the market unfiltered. Danny promised evidence, but only after he had the pink diamond. Without it, he'd be a dead man. So, Matty and Danny struck a deal. Danny and Solomon would disguise themselves as staff and join Matty's convoy. But danger found them first. The rebels ambushed the group. In the chaos, Solomon saved a child. With no space on the main bus, a few of them climbed into a small truck. By sheer twist of fate, that truck would be their salvation. The bus was later blown apart by rebel gunfire. As they fled deeper into the jungle, they encountered local guerrillas. But unlike the rebels, these men didn't kill without reason. After some tense gestures and thanks to Matty's camera, they softened, eventually leading the trio to a hidden sanctuary. It was a paradise carved out of chaos. Children once forced to kill now played, laughed, sang. They were being healed, their humanity restored. All of it thanks to the manor's owner, a man who believed no soul was truly evil, and even the darkest heart could still shine with light. Danny listened to his words and said nothing. But that night, under the stars, warmed by palm wine and lulled by children's songs, something shifted in him. For the first time, he opened up. He told Matty his truth. He was a white man, but born in Africa. When he was 9, rebels murdered his mother, beheaded his father. War took everything. At 19, he joined the colonel's mercenary force, not for justice, but for survival. Over time, he realized it was never about peace or race. It was about profit. And so, he left the army, became a smuggler, selfish and cold. But now, all he wanted was peace. And the pink diamond was his ticket out of Africa. As pain flickered across his face, Matty reached for his hand. From that moment on, their hearts drew closer. The next day, the manor's owner offered to guide them further. But on the road, they encountered a child rebel patrol. The owner, believing in redemption, tried to reason with them. They answered with gunfire. Danny reacted fast. He drew his weapon and threatened the children, long enough to scare them back. They escaped. Nearby was the colonel's camp. The manor owner was bleeding out. With no other choice, they rushed him there. The good news? The manor owner would live. Matty could evacuate with the other refugees. The bad? The colonel was leading a mission to Kono, the very mine where the pink diamond lay, and he demanded Danny join him. But Danny knew the truth. Once the colonel had the diamond, he'd leave nothing for anyone else. So he made a bold move. He asked Matty to create a diversion at the armory, so he could steal weapons and take Solomon alone. She agreed. Though tears filled her eyes, she knew this mission might kill him. Before leaving, Danny gave her everything, his evidence, his proof. If he died in Kono, she would expose the truth. With her help, Danny armed up. As they prepared to part, feelings neither had admitted now lingered in every glance. It might be their final goodbye. She gave him her numbers: home, office, mobile. For once, she made the first move, and then they each walked toward fate. On the road, Danny and Solomon spoke of the diamond. When Solomon heard it was over 100 carats, his tired feet moved faster. Freedom seemed close. But that night, danger returned. A rebel truck passed, and on it, Solomon saw his son. He shouted. They were nearly killed. Danny exploded. He pulled a knife, furious. If you mess up again, he snarled, I'll skin you alive. But Solomon didn't care. The pink diamond meant nothing next to his child. They fought. Danny gave in. Later that night, Solomon slipped into the rebel camp, found DI, and was captured. His son didn't even recognize him. Danny, realizing he was missing, followed. At dawn, the injured rebel commander appeared. He grinned at Solomon, raising an axe. Where's the diamond? He too wanted to escape Africa. Danny waited in the shadows, heart racing. Suddenly, helicopters roared in. The colonel's forces attacked. The rebels fell apart. In the chaos, Danny saved DI. Solomon crushed the commander's skull with a steel rod. The battle ended in fire. But now, all eyes were on Solomon. Only he knew where the diamond was. The colonel offered Danny a deal: get Solomon to talk, or both die. Danny brought DI forward. Solomon caved. At the dig site, the ground was already torn up by rebels. Solomon forced himself to keep digging. Danny asked a soldier for a cigarette. He was refused. Tension hung in the air. Then, Solomon made his move. He faked finding the diamond. Danny shot the nearest soldier. Solomon attacked the colonel. Danny vanished into the forest, only to return and shoot the colonel dead. At last, the diamond was found. But Danny had been shot. Then DI raised a gun. Solomon begged. The boy hesitated, then lowered the weapon. Their reunion lasted only moments before another ambush. They ran. Danny contacted his accomplice to send a plane. The extraction point, 10 kilometers of mountainous terrain. He tried to climb, but collapsed. Solomon carried him. Halfway up, Danny knew it was over. He took out the pink diamond, his dream. His death. He handed it to Solomon, gave him Matty's card, a gun, and a warning: don't trust my partner. Then he stayed behind. As Solomon escaped, Danny thought of the pursuers. Bleeding, he called Matty. I'm sending you Solomon. And DI, get them out. Matty smiled, then froze, hearing his fading breath. A helicopter passed above. Danny looked up, no regrets. The view's beautiful, he whispered. I wish you were here. Then, silence. Matty wept. She knew he was gone. Danny picked up a handful of blood-soaked dirt, the same soil he'd once tried to leave. The colonel had been right. Africa was his beginning, and now his end. As the sun set, he closed his eyes, a white soul fading into red earth. Later, with Matty's help, Solomon brought the pink diamond to London. A trade was made. His family, in exchange for exposing the truth. Matty documented it all. In May 2003, the Kimberley process was born. 40 countries signed a pact no diamond would be traded without a certificate, proving it was free of blood. But diamonds are just stones. It's people who give them meaning. People who make them symbols of love or war. Agreements may stop the trade, but they cannot stop greed, because the thing that's truly soaked in blood is not the diamond, it's desire. Thank you for watching. What do you think of this film? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe.